The scepticism is right, because in the past there have been considerable problems that the money doesn't reach the front line, that there's too much handling goes on before it gets to the front line in terms of the consumption of the money. But under these new policies, which are now pretty embedded in DFID, and which DFID and the British government have also tried to embed in the multilateral system, not least through the multilateral aid review, which looked specifically at whether people were delivering. I think that the system is now much more open, much more transparent, and we can actually see the effect on the ground. And I have absolutely no doubt that we will be asking on a very regular basis for reports to justify those results, and if those results are not being delivered as is promised and as the international community set out last year, then other methods will have to be found to deliver them, because we must have zero tolerance of failure. This is about helping some of the poorest women on the planet, and we have to be successful. I think the key thing about the conference last year was that it galvanized support, and it didn't go and tread unnecessarily in areas of disputation, which has so often in the past ended up killing off these initiatives. So it's an 8-year program, and I hope very much that the results, which will be very carefully monitored, will be visible soon. When I left the department, I had discussions with the Minister of Finance, and I'd explained that South Africa was doing extremely well, and that the bilateral programme, which was very small, I think it was £19 million from memory, was not, in our view, any longer justifiable. But there were a huge number of British development initiatives, not least through Trademark South Africa, Trademark East Africa, initiatives designed to boost enterprise and economic development on a regional basis, and therefore Britain was not ceasing to engage with South Africa on development, but working in partnership with South Africa, building on the fact that South Africa is the engine of development in that part of the world. There was a huge amount which we could do together, and I'm sure that that will continue, and that regional work through some of these non-national organisations, the more international approach to the area of southern Africa, will continue. But in terms of what was a very small bilateral programme anyway, targeted specifically at health, of course, where South Africa has made enormous strides from a very low start. You remember the problems with HIV/AIDS in Africa. And South Africa has done incredibly well on that, and Britain played a very important part in assisting South Africa in addressing what was for them a very significant problem. We are the first government ever that has honoured its promise to the 0.7 commitment. And I can't tell you how proud I am to have been a member of the government, have been the Development Secretary, in a government which has, in spite of immense economic difficulties in Britain, has not balanced the books on the backs of the poorest people in the world. And I'm very proud of that, notwithstanding the fact that, particularly at a time of great economic difficulty, every single penny has to be justified. And I make that point. I've always made that point when I had responsibility for these matters. So I think that's much the most important thing. And in a sense, I think worrying too much about the law could eclipse this very strong commitment that Britain has, which Britain has honoured. I don't actually particularly like or approve of declaratory legislation. I think it's quite demeaning for Parliament. If Parliament says it's going to do something, if government says it's going to do something, they should do it. And you don't need to be bound by some law. We should do it because we say we're going to do it, as we have done with the 0.7. Because of the extent of our support for Rwanda, which I emphasise is that we have no strategic interest in Rwanda. We helped Rwanda because it's a country that had been to hell and back, and with the genocide, and Britain has helped significantly in that country. The land rights for women, a very big programme in Rwanda. The British government has championed resolutely. And the closeness of the relationship gives us a chance to talk about issues of concern in a way that is really effective on behalf of the people of Rwanda. And if you look at issues of press freedom and political freedom, we are always seeking to nudge the government in the right direction on those things. There is evidence of progress on both counts. That is in the best interest of the Rwandan people and of our relationship with them. But you have to exercise, in both Ethiopia and Rwanda, you have to exercise a degree of strategic patience and not expect the perfect society to be created overnight. It does take time. What's most important is the direction in which they are going, and I think in the case of both Ethiopia and Rwanda, there are grounds for optimism.